So next session will be presented by Erin Clark from Stories Unseen. Erin Clark is the CEO and co-founder of Stories Unseen, a travel tech company reimagining heritage tourism with immersive self-guided tours. When she's not bringing history to life through storytelling, she helps organizations harness emerging technology to work smarter as a director of the Exchange Collective. Erin was fortunate to get the Heritage Awards last year, this year, and we'll be hearing her talk on bridging heritage and innovation, lessons from Stories Unseen. Welcome, Erin. Just a bit of a housekeeping. If we don't use the microphones, the live stream people can't hear us. That's why we are running with the microphones. Thank you, Erin.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Erin. I run a walking and driving tour company across Western Australia and South Australia, but it's a bit different. We don't have any human tour guides. We don't have any set departure dates. We don't have any minimum numbers. Basically, we've removed everything that's complicated about running a tour business and built a business around it. So, how did I end up at this strange crossroads of the intersection of heritage, history, tourism, and technology? So, I'll take you back. After a few bottles of Prosecco, on a very, very quiet Saturday in Perth, my husband and I, in February 2022, so in the middle of a COVID lockdown, my husband and I had a brilliant idea. Let's bring forgotten places and stories to life, and let's do it without waiting for the world to go back to normal. Because let's be honest, COVID felt like a really good time to start a tourism business. We already ran a technology consultancy, and I used to work in the media industry. And we're both history nerds who love a good walking tour. So we naturally thought, let's mash those things together. Let's take a bit of technology, a bit of storytelling, and a lot of stubborn optimism. And what came from that is Stories Unseen. So on our adventure, we ended up with creating something that we call curated self-guided tours, which seamlessly bring locations to life with audio and immersive narration from our charismatic companions. Sounds great, doesn't it? But like any good startup story, there's been a few pivots along the way. It hasn't been all eating lobster by the beach. And starting with the name. So because we know that the name is often the hardest of any project, our first app was called Dark Story, or Dark Story, or honestly, even we forget how to pronounce it these days. Using all the best practices from tech startups, we went from idea to app store in just 4 weeks. But you won't be at all surprised to hear that it was actually the technology that was the easy bit. So today, I'm here to share what we've learned along our journey, bridging heritage and innovation, the fun parts, the facepalm moments, and the surprising power of letting stories do the heavy lifting. And along the way, I'll help demystify some of the technology that we use. So you've probably guessed, we're not heritage people, we're not historians, we're commercialisation people. My co-founder is an accountant, so that he asked lots of difficult questions. So naturally, when we looked at the heritage experiences that were available, we couldn't help but spot a few different gaps. This is a nice one, is the old methods don't always land. So Kylie made a very beautiful point about signage. Thank you. We know that signs and maps are expensive. We also know that they're hard to read. They fade, maps tear, and most of the younger generation look at maps like it's something from a cursed artefact from a video game. It's just not something that we connect with. But the way that people travel has also changed as well. So there's an increased interest in personalised, tailored experiences. We don't just want to hear a linear story with facts and figures. The tours that treat people and every visitor in the same way is not what the market's looking for. The way that we travel post-COVID has fundamentally changed. People want something unique, not a 1-hour guided march following someone with an umbrella through a crowded city. And let's be honest, we want to connect, and I can see from lots of people in the room, we really just don't want to put down our phones. We've become surgically attached to them. And most of us are not planning to detox anytime soon. So if we wanted to bring heritage to life and get people connecting with forgotten places and forgotten stories, we had to meet people where they were, curious, mobile, a little overwhelmed, and offer them a new way in. Personal favourites that we've tried and tested. So the app makes it really easy to stay on track because it's got mapping, directions, those types of things. So it takes the friction out of travel. The interactive media in the app just adds extra depth to our storytelling. So what we're able to do is you're not just looking at a location as what it looks like today. We're able to show from the historical archives what it used to look like. And for those with kids, we can also do lots of fun things that make children laugh and lots of things that you can share on social media as well. One of the great things about our tours is that you can stop and take those magical moments in those places that really connect with you. When you're in a big tour group, you've got to go at the pace of a tour group. Whereas with the Stories Unseen app, if there's a place that you fall in love with, you can just spend longer in that location.
Up to 5 people can use one tour download at the same time. The cost for the walking tours is only $25, and it's great for groups of friends or family wanting to explore together. And once you purchase it, it's yours to use at your leisure for 12 months.
So that's Stories Unseen, a way to experience heritage differently on your own terms. But here's the thing, building an app and throwing a bunch of facts into it, that doesn't make heritage exciting. So we knew if we wanted people to feel connected to places and people, and yep, most importantly, pay for it, we had to flip the script. So there's this thing in the tech space we called user experience. And what that means basically is building something that people actually want to use. So we did an insane amount of testing with all ages, different cultures, different types of devices, and different attention spans to only be reminded of what so many people in this room already knew, which is that the story is still always king. And so by obsessing with our users, and I promise in not a creepy way, it was healthy, I promise. We learned these 3 really big lessons. The first one is that you are not your audience. You'd think this, we come from a commercialisation background, but no, we learnt the hard way. We named our first business Dark Story, because why make it easy to spell or to say? Our first tour was a historical pub crawl, because we thought it was awesome. We laughed, we thought it was great. But turns out that we weren't our own target market. Families wanted something a bit more PG. So fast forward to where we are today, we've got a treasure trove of dad jokes and even a school-friendly women's history tour, which has been expertly scrubbed of all of the brothels and bars. But every story needs a great narrator. It's actually something that Ryan from 2 Feet and a Heartbeat said to me quite early in our journey. He said, Erin, what about the tour guides? That's the best part of any tour. And I think we know that in terms of the collections and the spaces. It's that connection with people who deeply understand the history of a place. And that got us thinking, and a few builds and a few meta reviews, to realise the obvious. It's the guide that makes the tour, not the facts. So our first version, this historical pub tour, was here's this building, here's the architecture, it was built in this year. No charm, no character. But now, our pub crawl is led by Riley. Riley is the most quintessential Australian tour guide that you've never met, but you'll instantly trust your afternoon with. And then thirdly, it's really different designing technology sitting in your office compared to the real world. So on paper, we built a Mary Rain immersive experience. It was perfect. A fierce female entrepreneur smashing it in Perth. We're really excited to bring this story to the real world. But where did we put this experience? In the busiest pedestrian crossing in Perth. Not a good place for it. So I can see a few nods in the room. There's obviously a few people who have experimented with augmented reality before. The way that a user behaves is like this. So straight away we had people walking in front of cars, which is probably not the best idea. So we learned very fast that heritage storytelling using augmented reality isn't just about a good script. It's about designing for the real world and designing for chaos. So there was 3 really hard-won lessons as we've been on this journey. Firstly, that you aren't your audience, that your guide matters more than your buildings, and that the real world will always mess with your beautiful plans. But each thing comes back to the same place. It's always story first, and then tech second. So I've just said that, and then you can read on the slide. Now I'm going to completely contradict that. So while I've said that the tech doesn't matter, it still matters, but only if you pick the right tool for the right story. So I'm really interested because everybody comes at technology with different levels of experience. Who already is using some form of AI or augmented reality in their organisation? Got a few? Beautiful, how exciting. Who's hoping to implement these types of technologies in the next 12 to 18 months? Bit nervous, I get it. So what I'm going to do really quickly is give a quick crash course for those of us who aren't familiar with these acronyms and really quickly talk about some of the technologies that we use in our business. So this is pulling together some of the technologies that were talked about in yesterday's presentations. So the first one, augmented reality AR. So that's what we are. So that's when you've got your phone in your hand and you're in the real world. So for those who are familiar with Pokemon Go, same thing, less Pikachus. So it's sort of like that. Second one, virtual reality. That's when you've got goggles on. So you're fully inside a virtual world. You could be anywhere. Who went to see the Great Kimberley experience recently at the WA Museum? Beautiful. Great example of a virtual reality experience. Then also everyone starts talking about this AI thing. What the heck is that? All AI is it's an acronym. It's just saying it's not the robot overlords come to take us over. Well, I hope not. AI powers lots of different things. So if you want to nerd out on it, grab me in the break. But just know that there's a lot more to AI than just ChatGPT and large language models. And Kylie, we couldn't have planned this better. Thank you. Because what I'm going to break it into is 2 parts, which hopefully you remember from Kylie's presentation, which is how will people experience the story and what kind of story you're giving them. The only thing that Kylie and I didn't plan is I talk about it in the other order. So I'm going to talk about how, and then I'm going to talk about what. So let's jump into the storytelling toolbox in the order that Kylie doesn't suggest, and talk about what's in there. So in terms of the how, we've got to think about, because there's all these different types of technologies, how are we going to get it to them? So firstly, when we think about the platform, there's a few different parts to it. Are you going to use the visitor's device? So is it going to be their mobile phone or their iPad? Or is it going to be something that you provide? Is it going to be fixed to a wall? Or is it something that they can move around the space with? So it's effectively, how are you going to display all of the fantastic stories, the parts of your collection that you want to show off? Both, so it can be an app that they install on their phone, or it can be something that runs in a browser. There's pros and cons of both. Again, grab me, I can help explain the difference between them. Most importantly is to think about, because I know that there's a lot of limited budgets in this space, is are you using a completely off-the-shelf platform, so completely codeless, or have you got something that's so magical and complex that you've got something completely coded? Depending on where you are in that continuum, no code, cheap, fast, easy to support and maintain, but you kind of got to tweak it to get it into the right shape. Custom coded on the complete other end, lot more expensive, a lot harder to maintain, a lot harder to support, but you can get some really cool things. So you've got to think about where you fit on that continuum. Next one is wayfinding. So thinking about how the person will find their way around. Are they going to follow a fixed route like a trail, or are they going to have more of a choose your own adventure like using a scatter map? Giving directions, particularly when you're driving, whole other level of chaos. And it's also thinking about, are they going to get directions in the audio, or are they going to get directions using a map? Event triggers. Do you want the story to play when someone gets somewhere? Or do you want it to happen by location or a good old-fashioned Bluetooth beacon? So lots of different options for how things happen as a person moves through a space. There's also, don't forget, the oldie and the goodie, press 5 now, press 1 now, is still quite useful in particular spaces. I'm going to have a controversial opinion on QR codes, because I do appreciate last night's announcement that QR codes are now going to be included in the heritage plaques. QR codes can be hacked quite easily, so give consideration. So indoors in a space where you've got a lot of control over it, pretty cool. Just be really mindful if you're using QR codes in outdoor spaces, what you're doing with them, all that kind of stuff. But they, in particular contexts, they do work really well. So in the what kind of storytelling, we've got them to the right place. What kind of story are we telling? So when we're actually in the space, in the location, are they moving around? Are they stationary, sitting on a bench? Are they walking along a path? Are they cycling? Are they driving? Are they on water? Each of these requires a different type of design. So trust me, as someone who's driven down the Indian Ocean Drive so many times, it's really hard to do when someone's moving quickly compared to when someone's moving slowly. And if someone's on the water, you need to route them to a wharf. Don't expect them to swim in the Swan River. It's a thing I've learnt. And in terms of the audio, so that's something I think as a community we're very familiar with. And it's something that a lot of us do in our locations. It's actually really cool to see the History Slam last night, because that's actually a really good example. 3-minute audio, short, sharp, funny, very targeted, is a really great example of what works well in these platforms. Immersive layers. So that's when we start talking about augmented reality. This is where you use technology to show what's not there. So much of our tours need to historically be tied to our built form. By using augmented reality, what it enables us to do, so using those immersive layers or those overlays, is it means that we can take stories from boxes and tell different types of stories that we haven't been able to before. Women's stories, Indigenous stories, who might not have a plaque or a mark or a building that we connect to place. And that can go, again, on a sliding scale. So it can be anything really simple from a then and now slider. So here's a current day photo. Here's the photo from our archives and the comparison between them, right through to quite a complex, here's what a building used to look like in the past. So the example that you can see there is something from the app that tells the story of the gilt dragon at the Moore River mouth in Gilderton. So that's one of the ones that we've built. I'm going to whip through these quickly because I'm mindful of time. And I'm sure you've got lots of questions. Gamification, so another buzzword from the tech industry. Aren't we great at buzzwords? The way to think about gamification is it's another way to make things interactive, and it comes in 2 very simple flavours. There's quizzes, so test me, challenge me, or badges, I did a thing, reward me. And then you can also combine the 2 together into a scavenger hunt. So the presentation that we saw from Thomas yesterday with the pensioner barracks was an example of a game. So those types of mini games can also be embedded into apps. That's very advanced level type stuff. Big budget, got one of those. Build a mini game banger and an app. But quizzes, badges, those types of things would be within the what most local museums would be resourced to do. So when you're thinking about, whether you're starting out fresh or you're thinking of making more of what you've already invested in, is really thinking about what do you want to use from the technology toolbox. So don't let anyone bamboozle you with buzzwords. If it's not making sense, ask the tech person to explain it better to you, because that's something that's really important, and ask how it will be supported and maintained. What I'm going to whip through really quickly is where we don't use emerging technology. So we don't use it for generative AI, we don't use it for tour research, we don't use it for writing tour scripts, and we don't use it for AI voices. So we've fiddled a bit with AI art as a way to do historical recreations, but what we've found is the copyright, it can be quite concerning, so we've moved away from that. We've also moved away from complex immersive experiences. So we've done like complex 3D flower models and all those types of things. But what we've found is that cute little talking stromatolites are actually, with googly eyes on them, far more technically easy to do, is actually well received. So when you're thinking about these types of technologies, just because it's new and shiny doesn't mean that it's the right thing for your organisation. What I'm going to pop up on the screen is what we've learned as part of this journey is the process of building building a tour. So we've now put together a tried and tested approach of things that we think are pretty special. And my call to action is really to think about not just how you build a tour, but how you're going to maintain and support it. Because there's a lot in that we fixate on the stories and we fixate on the facts and the figures. But you can see from that process that that's actually the smallest part of what we do. So much of our energy goes into planning, into testing, and then how we support and maintain over time. So if there's one thing that I can leave you with, it is this. Innovation in heritage isn't just about using the latest tech for the sake of it. It's about making the right story unforgettable and picking the tools that will serve the story, not steal the spotlight. So tech will change. Tech always changes. But the stories that connect, they never go out of style. Thank you.